Howdy folks, Pilgrim here. Folks, I haven't been able to tell anything like this for a long time, and I don't look for it, so to speak. But and normally I like to leave my videos, like the one I posted yesterday, up for a longer time before making the next one, because because the last video from A&O Productions here on YouTube was so important that I want as many people as possible to see it. So if you didn't see that video, please check my listings and watch the video before this one. Okay, please watch it. By David Wilkerson. But as those folks on Facebook and Instagram know, I woke up this morning at about 4 o'clock a.m. and I was typing madly, furiously away. Folks, when you receive a dream from the Lord, write it down. Keep a notepad and paper, a notepad and pen beside the bed in a drawer or something, so that if anything happens, you write it down. And if it's from the Lord, you'll know it. And, if it's not from the Lord, nothing will come of it. But, the Scripture tells us in Thessalonians, commands us, do not scorn a prophecy. So I hear a lot of rubbish, a lot of garbage on YouTube and other places. And I say nothing because, this person, I believe they're talking nonsense. But this person, they're talking about something that's going to come in the future. And other people are insulting them and calling them names and everything else, and I try to tell them that's the wrong behavior for a Christian. We're under commandment. Do not scorn a prophecy. If it's from the Lord, then it will show itself. It will prove itself to be true, and you may be rebuked by the Lord for having scorned something that came from Him. If it wasn't from the Lord, then the man's own foolishness will be reaped upon his own head by speaking that which was not true. So, in my own defense, when these things happen, and I've had visions before and dreams that have been prophetic, and I've put them on this channel before, I've made videos out of them, and a couple of years later, those exact things have happened. So, always, I say, this is what I saw. And that's it, okay? Last night was one of those nights, and it was so strange because I knew that I had to type it up, or otherwise I'd forget it. That's what happens if you don't use a notepad and a pen, immediately at hand. You'll think, oh, I'll remember that in the morning. The details are so strong. By the time morning comes, it's all gone. I've learned this time and time again. Let me read this to you and share this with you quickly so I don't bore you to death. And you'll see my point of proof in the description itself. Okay, this is exactly what I wrote at 4 this morning, and I want to remember this. That's why I'm making this video. As I posted on Facebook, I had a dream from God this morning at 4:20. At 4:20 this morning. I need to record the related searches associated with it. And in this post, I just give some brief details, but I want to try to explain them as I go through them. In the dream that I received, I saw what looked like a sphere, an orb coming out of planet Earth. It was like planet Earth like this, and then another smaller one coming out of it. You know what I mean? And it was kind of attached to it. This was a city, and its name was Iguacu. All right, it's a Portuguese name. I knew that by the sound and the intonation of how it was spoken, and I know a little bit of Portuguese. Okay, but this Iguacu, this city, was the biggest city on Earth in this dream. It had multiple layers in it, in the air and in the earth. I was taken inside it and so I could look around. It was like the size of the moon, and you could, I saw freeways just passing through the air, and you could look over the edge of the freeways and see other levels with houses and lakes below them, and grass and plains, prairies and things like that. And then below that, another level, and below that, another level. It was completely unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It was the biggest city on Earth, multiple layers in the air and in the earth. the point here in this dream was that I'd never heard of Iguacu before. I couldn't make this word up, this name up. I didn't even know that it was a name because I've never heard it before. I don't speak Portuguese as my first language. I only know a few words. But the name was specific. But I was assured many times of its reality, that they were talking about Iguacu. I was shown news reports on the television sets, talking about Iguacu and so on. And when I was visiting it and so on, shown around it. Everything alive. Everyone that was alive on Earth, so to speak. All nationalities were gathered inside this city. Not the Earth's population, but everybody from every population on Earth was inside the city. It was a mega city. It was very much like Brazil. Everybody was poor in it, but it was a very rich, powerful, mega city. But the foundations of the city were being destroyed by the sea. I saw them, polluted, being smashed away over time, and so on. That brings to mind the scripture about the sea of mankind in Revelation. Numerous scriptures about that, but that's a whole different discussion. That's the first part of the dream, okay? This mega city, it's sticking out of the earth like an orb out of an orb. Just an awesome, incredible thing, but its foundations were being smashed away, being weakened and destroyed. Therefore, Iguacu falls. The second part of the dream was I was in my own house, and this is where some of my own personal feelings may have got involved, but I feel the two were connected very strongly. There was a mega storm, and it was shown to me on TV news reports. I saw a mega storm, massive storm, unlike anything I've ever seen before. And it was passing outside our house. And there was a Japanese man, and he was drawing another man who I was at that time, another Japanese man. He was drawing him forcefully towards this marriage commitment and getting him to sign his name. This guy was reluctant to do so. He was, he was not fully compelled. I mean, there were things in him that were not committed, and so on. And this other man, this what would be father-in-law, was drawing him to sign this contract and forcing him to do it. There was a great urgency, a pressure to do so. And outside this storm, a black cloud of the funnel, you know what I mean, that I saw. I've never seen a storm this big. And it was heading past our house. It was not heading directly towards it. It was heading past us. But you know how these storms are, these twisters? This was a twister. And everything around it flying through the air. Absolute chaos around it. And normally we've been through these storms before in this house. And we've been safe. Our house is strong, and we're not on the direct storm path as they normally pass this way. We are very blessed in being located where we are. But this storm was so big, and the TV reports that I was seeing on the television stations were saying this was bigger than Hurricane Andrew, and so on and so on. And as I lay there, the windows on the right side of the house exploded and showered us with glass, and all chaos and took place, and I heard the howling of the wind as never before, and this guy was still trying to get me to commit to this marriage contract, And all I'm thinking is, I've got to get out of here. I heard Kelly screaming right next to me, and the house, was being ripped up left, right, and center by the force of this giant outside, The newscast gave the storm name, but I can't remember what it is, and somehow these two things were connected. And I was surprised on waking up, when I thought about this. It had been the reality of Iguacu had been repeated to me and repeated to me and repeated to me so many times that when I woke up and gathered my senses, I was astonished to find that Iguacu wasn't real. I had to really remind myself that this isn't a real place. There's no orb sticking out of the earth, this great thing. And it really was so powerful an impression and placed upon me. And so its foundations being smashed away. It's It was so big its top reached the heavens. Now, I know from a biblical perspective, some of you are already recognizing those descriptions, and I'll get to that. But I did a web search immediately on my little iPad phone on Iguacu. I already knew exactly how it was spelled because I know how Portuguese works, but I'd never heard this name before. Okay? And there's a link to it. Guess what the link is? Iguacu Falls. It refers to the world's biggest waterfalls on planet Earth. It's like a huge cavern where all the water is just pouring in. You know, absolute chaos. And it's also called, in the local tongues down there in South America, near the southern tip of Brazil, it's called the Devil's Tongue. Okay, I just find that very interesting. Now I want to read some of the questions that I was asked about this. Not the questions themselves, but my answers to them, because it adds more detail, and this is for my own memory, to remember this. Someone asked me, are you sure of the spelling of the city? I said, I'm absolutely 100% certain of the spelling. I know Portuguese, but I have never heard of this name. It's interesting information about Iguacu Falls, that they are the largest waterfalls in the world. I was shown all around the city and its multiple layers, and I was asking why there were no statistics on how many people committed suicide in that city, since it was so easy to simply step off the edge of the freeways that were wheeling through the air all over the place. It was an awe-inspiring city. It was so easy to just step off the edge, to skydive into one of the lakes below, on one of the levels below, you know? People are like that. They would do that. It was like a sphere sticking out of the planet, an orb coming out of an orb. It was very strange. There are many more details to this, but now I'm wondering if the city was really Babylon, the United States. Somehow Iguacu was tied to the second part of this dream, the storm part, which showed me the mother of all storms coming our way. Okay? Particularly interesting and thinking of this as Babylon when I've never heard the name Iguacu before in my life. I couldn't have made this name up. I've never heard it before. But I was told very specifically. And when I did a search on the World Wide Web, only one place on the entire planet Earth came up, and it was Iguacu Falls. And I'd already been shown Iguacu falling, ready to fall, as its foundations were being eroded away. Very fast. It's very hard to invent a name that you have never heard in a language that you barely speak, and then to find it on the map. That one part marks it as prophetic to me, as something I should listen to. Also interesting that it's called the Devil's Tongue in the local languages, because if it refers to Babylon, then I remember Babylon as described in the book of Revelation. And in the Bible's own words, some among the many things that are called against her are her sorceries, which refer to her deceptions, you know. Interestingly, this place is called the Devil's Tongue. Forked tongue speaks lies, deception, sorcery, you know. I just try to take notice of everything. That's why I'm including all these details. Because many times when I think I understand something, especially about visions and dreams, the answers, the true answers, whatever they are, sometimes understanding comes to me even months later. You know, I think I've got all the answers now, and I think I know what I'm talking about, and I don't. Right now, I just want to record the dream. But, you know, sometimes months down the line, some event will happen. Like March 2015 with the collapse of the U.S.-Mexican border, which I dreamed 5 years in advance. Things like this. So I'm just putting this out there. Iguacu Falls. It's a dream vision from God, I believe. I'm not exactly sure what it refers to, why it used South America, Brazil as a connecting point. What's interesting is looking at that map. It's the lower section of Brazil where Brazil touches Paraguay, and the nearest big city in Paraguay on the other side of the border to Iguacu Falls is the city of Ascension. They're separated by a massive, what looks like a chasm, a dam, You know, it's the Itaipu Dam, and man, if anything ever happens to that dam, yeah, it's going to be hell on earth for those people there. But I don't think this was about that place. This was a message to me about Iguacu, the city. You know, an awe-inspiring city, unlike any other place on earth. A mystery, if you like. That's just my take on it. I'm recording it here for my own sake, to refer to in the future. I don't know if this sounds a lot of confusing nonsense to you guys. I apologize if it does, but I've got to get the details down before I forget them in the days ahead. Always keep watching the news. Always keep looking up. For our redemption isn't that far away, it's near. God bless you, and perhaps we'll see each other soon.